Okay. Hi, Jeri. This is Jeri, my friend Jeri Franz, and I've asked her to come on tonight to share with us some of the things that she has been up to. Jeri's an extremely creative individual. I know her best for her writing. She writes poetry. She's very creative in her way of expressing through word and well, the written word basically. But she has been up to something that is very fascinating to me and something I think everyone has probably done at least once in their life, probably earlier in their school years. So, Jeri, what have you been up to?
Well, thank you, Kathy. I have to say how impressed I am that Kathy's doing this tonight when she doesn't have any water in her house because of this big storm that went through Texas. But anyway, I find it interesting that Kathy says I'm a very creative person because I have never thought of myself as a creative person. Ever since I was in first grade and colored a teddy bear, and the teacher had me walk up and down the rows of the children and hold that teddy bear and say, "This is not how we color a teddy bear." And so when I was encouraged to express myself creatively when I was in college, for instance, taking a creative writing course, and the teacher saw some talent in me, but I was like, I'm not creative. I can't, just those things that were fed as a child. It's interesting how they stay with us. And so, but over the years, I've loved poetry. I have a grandmother who was an artist and a writer. And so once I thought, I'm going to try drawing. Maybe I'm like Grandma Moses, I can draw something. And I tried it and it was just like, oh my gosh. It did not work out. So, but I've picked up my poetry writing again, which has been a wonderful way to express myself. I know my grandmother was inspired by nature, or a lot of poets are. I've been reading Mary Oliver, and she's does wonderful poems on nature. I like nature, but I'm not really inspired by it. Instead, I'm inspired by my feelings, and it's a way for me to get my feelings out and to share. But anyway, this latest thing, I ran across again. My grandmother was a avid photographer, like in the early 1900s, highly unusual, a farm wife, and she took all these pictures of neighbors. Just I don't know who they are. And then on the back they have like postcards. And maybe some of you that have been to antique stores, or you've seen these old photos, you see how they put them on the backs of postcards, which is interesting. I don't quite know the process, but she took and developed her own pictures of a lot of the neighbors. So I have all of these pictures, and I'm like, I've pulled them out of an album, and I know when I die, my kids are not going to save these pictures. They don't know who they are. And I think they're so charming. And so I felt, what can I do with these? They aren't really part of necessarily my family history. But then I decided collage, and I talked to my sister-in-law, who's very well versed in collage. She really ought to be teaching this class. In fact, Kathy just kind of threw me into this, and I said, Kathy, I'm just like a beginner. And she said, well, so is everybody else. And I do kind of relate to that, because I know when I was talking about collage a few months ago, my sister-in-law sent me home from her house with a bunch of books about collage. I'm looking at all this mixed media, and I'm going, no way. And I just put it away. So hopefully, please understand, I am a beginner. And I'm just going to show you some basic tools. And I'm telling you what, if I can do it and you have a desire to do it, you can do it. The other thing I love about collaging, it doesn't take a lot of materials. These are wonderful to have, by the way. These are called Cutter B from Amazon or Michael's, I suppose. But when you're cutting around these folks, or anything, and maybe you're just cutting out of an old magazine, or the other thing is, if you don't have pictures of like this, photographs like this, just you can make copies of, the family ancestry, or the ancestry pictures that you have, the photos, and just cut around them. They're just, digitalize them, print them out, and cut around them. But these are wonderful for getting around, like the little ears and down the neck and things like that. So I don't know how I've lived this long without little Cutter bee scissors. And then old paint brushes, that you use for watercolors or whatever, or spongy ones like this. Mod Podge, love Mod Podge, so fun. So messy and easy, doesn't matter. It just, and I'll go, oh my gosh, should I do this? Did I do this too thick? My sister-in-law say, it doesn't matter. And that's the other thing I like about it. Almost anything goes in collage. And then what she brought to me that we did, I'll show you my collages here in a minute, were these canvas. I mean, I didn't even know they made these. I'm sure Kathy does. But these canvas, little canvas things. These are what my grandmother, I should have hung up one of her pictures behind me, paintings. What she would do, she would make her own canvas, and you can see how a person could. I'm not about to, or I can get it at Walmart. But then you just use a canvas. Now, a trick, if you want to frame your work afterwards, you're going to have to get a special canvas frame for this. And so you might want to just use a flat canvas if you're going to want to frame it. And here's a little 5x7. They have all sizes. So I'm
Great
looking
idea.
Huh?
That's perfect. That's a perfect idea. Thank you for sharing that. That is a great idea. I love that you're doing it on a canvas.
And I realized that because I made one for my daughter's nursery. She's having her first baby in April. Now I've got to go figure out how to get it framed, which I'll show you in a minute. But and that's about it. And like some old, well, I'll tell you about that in a minute. Okay, so let me show you what I did and kind of how that all came about. So the first one, is this little one right here, this little deal. Now, and again, these are those little postcards. And so we even took the little postcard thing down there and put it there, and then one of the little places for the stamp. But my only relatives here are these three. These are my mother's first cousins. Everybody else they're just neighbor children. But the thing that we did was we just, and see this print behind here? That is from a McCall's magazine, 1911. Yeah, that my mother had this and a couple other ones in a trunk. 50 cents for a year for McCall's. How about that? Or 5 cents a copy. Oh my gosh, but they have stories in here. And so you can like cut that out, or if you're like at Goodwill or an antique store or something, you can find old books that you could use to cut up. Other thing is, if you don't have anything like that, just you can take some papers out of a book that you want to use. It could be like a story, because it is kind of fun. Like this says, in Wonderland. It's kind of fun to pick out a few phrases, and then you can steep them, do tea bags like tea, and just put the page in a cup of hot brewed tea or coffee. Now I don't drink tea or coffee. So we drink rooibos tea, which if you've ever heard of that, I don't know, but it's kind of a brown tea, and I'm seeing if that works. So I've been soaking some pages in that, but they're kind of wet now, so I won't bring them over here. But that's an option too, or borrow a tea bag from your neighbor if you don't drink tea. But I love the way her little legs are hanging off of there.
Oh,
and we reinforce that. But you can see with this now, in order to frame this and have her little legs hanging there, I'd almost have to frame it myself with, or have it framed with just, wood strips around it. You know what I mean? But when you're doing something like this, if you're using the canvas that's like this, the other thing is you can go on this side, and then it's kind of in a little more depth to it. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? I mean, like you can talk to me. But so when you're wrapping, first you put down the print or whatever you're going to use, and then you just wrap it around over here on the sides. Okay. So they're all finished. So in case you don't want to or need to, you don't have to frame these. They're all finished. And you just, you probably all know how to use Mod Podge, right? I mean, it's just like glue.
How did you reinforce the legs? And I love that it's not framed. A lot of the acrylic paintings and that they have, we just paint around the edge there, so you don't have to worry about a frame at all. And I love that.
True. That is nice. We just put her on like a piece of cardstock. Or my sister-in-law is so good. She says, when you're cutting up, like we have this just, shoebox, and when you're cutting things up, don't throw them away, put them in there, because you never know. So we just put her on a little piece of that stuff we'd cut up, and then cut her out again is all. So it's just a double, or you can put it on cardstock or something, Yeah, so that's good to know, Kathy. I didn't know that.
That's
So
perfect. Well, I was
then,
gonna say I love the way you finished it off. I love your edges around it. I love the words, how they wrap around it. And I
yeah.
especially love those little legs hanging off.
Oh, me too. Oh no, when I saw that little doll with those little tights, those little whatever, I said, oh my gosh, those have got to be hanging off that picture. And then for my daughter, I did this one. And so I want to tell you a little bit and she's got little cute little feet hanging off too. Now on this one, three of these babies are my mother, and two of the babies are my husband's mother, and her name is Mary, who Maggie is going to name her baby Mary. So the background here is just vintage wallpaper. And my sister-in-law said, just use vintage wallpaper. I thought, where am I going to get vintage wallpaper? You Google it. You Google vintage wallpaper, you pull it up, you save the image, you print it out. That's it. I mean, you just print it out. And I printed several sheets out, and then I texted my daughter and said, which one do you like best? And she said, this light pink. And so you can see, and it's not smooth. And I cut it into strips with my hand. And you can see there's just kind of the little strips there. And a tip that my sister-in-law taught me, who knew, is that if you want your paper to be like these strips to still show the pattern, you cut from the right down. If you want the white edge to show, you tear from the left down. See how the white, you probably can't see it there. But anyway, and I thought, well, that's interesting. So anyway, I put all that. So I put all that on it again, put it around the edges. And then the trick with people, like with these babies, for instance, is you put the big ones in the front, just like I think Kathy, as an artist, probably knows if you're doing a drawing, you're going to put a bigger tree in the front and then smaller trees in the back as you get, so you put your bigger people in the front and smaller in the back whenever you're doing people. And of course, you can slap anything on a collage. That's what's so fun. You want to do a bunch of words, you want to do scriptures, you want to do, I got all kinds of, I'm just writing down all kinds of things in my notes that I'm with my grandkids, things that they love. Your vision, everybody's into vision boards. What's your dream? What are your words that you love? Slap them on there, slap them on, do a collage of them. It's just fun. And then we took out of a little old primer that she had, sugar and spice and everything nice. And then her little name down here. So let's see. Oh, another fun tip is when you're getting these little these little words and you're putting them on here, it's, you kind of lick your finger to get them, to hold on, to them, but you can move them around with a toothpick. So utilize a toothpick and just, because you put them down, you don't want to put them, glue them yet. Oh, that's the other thing. Speaking of gluing yet, when you get everything down, because first, okay, you've done your background, right? And then you've placed your babies or your people or whatever, or your words, and you've, then, but you're not going to do it right then. Well, you've got to take them off, right? Because then you've got to glue the back with the Mod Podge. And so be sure to take a picture of it. And I found that I took a picture of it, then I printed it out. Then I could look right at it and put everything right, everybody right where they were supposed to be. So that's a really good tip, is to take a picture of it and have it there. But let's see what else.
I have a question, Jeri. Okay,
Yeah.
so I was confused. Do you, on the background, you put the background on there, you glue the background on, right? And then do you go back and put Mod Podge on top of that? Or is the Mod Podge the final thing over everything?
Well, good question. And the answer is yes and yes.
Okay.
So you take your Mod Podge, with your brush or your sponge, and you go over the back of the paper and then all over the canvas. Then you place it on there as each strip, like I just did, each strip at a time. And then after I got them all on, then I went over it all again with the Mod Podge. Okay. Then when I put my babies on, I did the back of the baby, and then I did the little spot where I was going to put the baby, put the people in the back first, by the way, because you're putting your front people over these guys. And what, if you don't have it just right, you can move them around a little bit. They're not just stuck like, rubber cement or something. And then after you get them all on, yeah, you go over them again. And then I let it dry again and then went over it again. It's like you can't have too much Mod Podge, and it just kind of gives that nice little, you can see, that shiny nice look, to it.
That
So,
is so precious. That is so precious. I love that
and
whole
my daughter's
idea.
really excited about it. And darn it, I texted her and I said, well, do you want a frame with this? And yeah, I think I do. So, but they do have on Amazon and probably Hobby Lobby, Michael's, whatever. They do have canvas frames that you can, because, these are thicker, so they're not going to go just in a, I have to research that. I can't give you a lot on that. Maybe that'll be next time, but that's about it. It's just, go through your old magazines. And I think a great way to start is just by getting your plastic shoebox or whatever. When you see something, rip a page out, throw it in there, and decide what you want to do. But again, if you want to do a family history one, get your, because that's my next one. I want to do one now that I've got these babies done. I want to do one with pictures of just my ancestors, my grandparents, and some of those with the background of this Swedish or this Norwegian Bible thing. But there's no limit to how many collages you want to do, or what you want. I guess you don't know where you're going to hang them all, but what you want to do on a collage, and it's fun, and you can't blow it. That's what I love about it.
Another question for you, Jeri. Did you Xerox those pictures, the originals? Are those Xerox copies of the original picture, or did you use the original on those particular ones?
I used the original pictures.
Okay.
Well, wait a minute, except for well, my mother and my mother-in-law, because I wouldn't have used theirs. So theirs I did. And that is one of the reasons that, like, this little baby here, which is my mother-in-law, she's a little bit different color, but this was a copy. I love an app called PhotoMine, MYNE, and you can scan the pictures. And then they will go onto the web as well, and then you can print them from there. But you can just put them on, and it's better to scan them into your computer somehow rather than just Xerox them. Xerox it doesn't. I did try that with some, and it just didn't come out real well. So, okay. But try it. I mean, it might. Maybe you have a better printer. It might. It's hard to say. But yeah, great question.
Yeah, and I wonder too, though, with the printer, did you have to seal the top of the ones that were printed to keep any of that ink from bleeding off or anything? No. Nope, they were fine. Probably, yeah. Is one more question? Is yours a laser printer, or I don't even know what the other one is called?
Inkjet, normal
inkjet.
Yeah, inkjet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Gosh, that's beautiful. Gosh, that's beautiful.
It was so fun, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. And something else ran into my mind. I was going to, but if you're just like into, maybe you just want to look, maybe you want to experiment, or you could go to, I mean, these pictures, I mean, it's so sad. You'll be in Goodwill or you'll be in a vintage store and there's all these old pictures and you think, oh, got rid of all their family pictures. But, and the other thing is you can find like old, let me see if I can find it. Oh, shoot. My mother-in-law also my grandmother collected all these postcards like this, for instance. Maybe you have an old, somebody had sent her this postcard, and it's just so fun. And, what I want to do is get some old, or some vintage wallpaper and put on the back and then just attach that, to that. That's not really a collage, but there's so many things you can do with, just whatever makes you happy. And that's what I think is so fun about collage. Whatever makes me happy, and when I look at it, makes me smile. And isn't that the way art is, or it should be? When you've created something, to look at it should make you smile. My drawings did not make me smile, which is one of the reasons I don't do it. But the collages or my poems, and that's another collage. I want to do a collage of just with my poems on it. Just a few of my poems kind of scattered about on it. But just something that you look at and you've created, and it just makes you makes you smile. I love looking at these. It turns my heart to my fathers, to these times, thinking of these people that lived at one time, and hopefully that will do the same for my new little granddaughter. So
Oh, they're beautiful. I'm inspired now for my daughter to make one for her. Jeri, what is your website that because you have that, you're still doing that website that has your poetry on it, don't
yeah,
you?
jerifranz.blogspot.com. It's my blog. Yeah.
Okay. Spell it. Jeri
Franz, Franz .blogspot.com. I hope I didn't
Okay.
forget anything to tell you. Anything you can think of, Kathy, that
No, I think that was
just
perfect.
go get yourself some Mod Podge, some scissors. Get these. They're invaluable. Unless you probably already, if you're sewers or seamstresses, you probably already have a really good pair of scissors. I did not. But and a couple of canvases at Walmart, and give it a whirl. Put some
Now, when
newspaper down. Oh, if you have a newspaper, it's like, who has newspaper anymore? So I just have some old shelf paper I put down because it is messy, but
Now, what about a last question for you? Because I think you've given us a lot of great ideas here on the wallpaper. Is there, like you said, we just Google wallpaper, vintage
yeah,
wallpaper?
vintage wallpaper. I did vintage pink wallpaper because she wanted pink, vintage pink and yellow wallpaper, vintage, yeah. And some of it, they want you to buy, but I don't need a roll of vintage wallpaper.
Right.
You can
Just a little bit.
save the image and print it out, save image as, right click, you probably all know how to do that.
Thank you. All right.
You're
Well,
welcome.
thanks for joining us tonight, everybody. And thank you so much, Jeri, for doing this. This is awesome.
Thanks
So
for asking.
everybody go now and try this and
Yeah.
then post it on the site and let's see what everybody's collages look
Oh,
like.
I'd love to see everybody's collages.
That'll be awesome. All right, let me take us off record. Thanks. Just a second.